Paul. Is that the same thing? No.
Yeah, it's just the name of the actual site, but the address is djparley.com.
And then I think we first hooked up. You used to do while you're here. You used to do those. Tell them about the line of the sampleology.
Oh,
sampleology.
Yeah, I guess that's how we met through the sampleology mix series I do. Where, you connect the new music to the old. So you throw in the original samples, combine it with the new stuff, and
right. And it was right, yeah, basically connected to the old, something that Ahmed and I debate about. But anyway, that's DJ Parley. But Megan, just explain to people about a little about Revive the Live, because I'm not sure I did it justice. I didn't toe the company line.
Well, Revive the Live is it's like an anthem, but it's also a live production that we produce. We collaborate a lot of jazz musicians with a lot of MCs. And we produce very creative conceptual events, kind of teaching. There's an educational aspect to it. A lot into jazz, a lot into hip hop, some other things too, but it's really like a live event.
Right. Okay, and you produce events all over the city, and you just had one, right? Was it yesterday? Wednesday.
Wednesday, yes.
Was tell me it was a.
It's called the Playlist Party.
I wanted to call it a mixtape because you had all those cassettes on the flyer. That was a nice flyer right there.
Yeah, it took me 6 hours.
What, to do the flyer?
Yeah.
I can imagine. Is that like a lot of time or a little bit? That's a lot of time.
That's a lot of time.
Okay.
I was trying to be creative. And
you were successful.
A lot of time.
You were successful. It was featured on the bodega. I haven't put it up. And then we have Amina here, unfortunately.
Amina is here, yes.
I couldn't kick her out. But no, for those tuning in, Amina is our one of our talent buyers for the festival and Brooklyn Bodega as well. And is also here because this debate about acts and what acts, just more of a creative discussion we always have about the type of people we want to be featured on the festival and at Show and Prove. And I say, well, we'll get into our positions, but we often disagree philosophically, but more times than not, Amina's proven me wrong. So I'm beginning to sort of, against my better judgment, she's the one you should be bothering if you want to get on the Brooklyn Hip Hop Festival, not me. And her home address is. So anyway, so the debate is, the question is, and it came up most recently, and you guys weren't here, but Jessica from My Heart Dilla, during the VH1 Hip Hop Honors, where they had that house band. I guess it was it some sort of version of the Roots, or I guess it was just led by.
It was Gym Class Heroes.
Gym Class guys, right?
Oh, that
Gym
was
Class Heroes was the band. Yeah.
Okay, so they had them sort of playing, and these guys coming out and doing, paying honor to Def Jam. But one performance in particular jumped out at me was Onyx,
right?
Who came and did, I guess it was Slam. Mm-hmm. They did Slam over the live band, and they didn't start on time. Like I know they got off, and it just was, to me, was just this jumbled mess. And I just remember having the same thought that I always have with Amina. It was like, I don't understand why did they do that? That song was not recorded with a live band. Mm-hmm. I question how many times they've even performed it with a live band. But here, probably when now you got millions of people who've never seen Onyx, or people like our age who haven't seen Onyx maybe in 10 years,
right. And
then you decide to sort of get in front of, do that. It just didn't make sense to me, and it began this bigger question of why. Why? What is this? And maybe I will start with Amina. Like, what is this? It's almost a fascination, I call it, with merging of this live instrumentation with hip hop bands who don't normally use live instruments. So that's the question. We'll start with you.
So the question is why?
Why
did they do that?
Why did they do it? Why
I think in general. I'll start by saying I was not personally a fan of the Slam rendition. I never claimed to be. It sounded like Slam unwrapped or something. It was kind of like a smooth jazz version of Slam, which I wasn't necessarily a fan of. I don't think that has to do with they shouldn't perform with a band. They need to perform with a band that knows how to interpret that song better and perform it better. And probably maybe a few more rehearsals, wouldn't have hurt. But I think MCs, perform with bands. It's about like creative, probably like stretching the boundaries and being, and trying something different. you know, like, and I agree that they could have performed it with the DJ, and that's fine, and maybe had people have not seen them in years, and they kind of just brought it back to the old school. But I think in general, when people, you know, try to express themselves differently and try new things and kind of push the boundaries a little bit creatively as artists, I think that's kind of basically where it comes from, a performance with a live band. But I do think it needs to be done, you know, well.
Hopefully you want to do everything. But I mean, Megan, do you see this sort of this affinity for maybe MCs wanting to incorporate live bands just more so? I mean, you know, is this a very popular...
I mean, I think it's went from 0 to 10 in a very short period of time, especially post-Roots. But for the hip-hop honors thing with Onyx
yeah.
and Gym Class Heroes, I think that particularly was set up just for that particular situation, because I know the band that they performed with, and it wasn't Gym Class Heroes, obviously, and I believe that they only had like one rehearsal, and it was something put together very last minute to kind of appease whatever audience they had for Gym Class Heroes, and doing something that they thought was really unique and creative that just totally did not come off the way
So that
expected.
was it just Gym Class Heroes for Onyx, or they were there that was the band the whole night?
I think the whole time they were there, right?
That was the house band, Gym Class Heroes.
I just saw that one performance.
Okay.
I didn't even.
Did you see it?
watch
Yeah,
The
the
Roots
Roots station, right? I think it was like a hybrid of some of the Roots guys and some of the Gym Class guys.
Right. Yeah, because obviously, I mean, Questlove was
Right.
there.
I feel like they used different members and
Right.
just used them throughout the night.
Yeah, I just don't understand. Like when well, this is the question I always had, was when did, and we bring this to Parlay, is I'm not quite sure when, and I think you're right, it went from 0 to 10 post Roots, and that's what I kind of wrote on the website, is everybody they think that Questlove is like the magic potion, like, oh, let's do this. And then if Quest gets involved, then it becomes almost real music. We'll get to that the next segment, but I don't know, when did the DJ become inadequate? Like now, all of a sudden, we need to, and Gym Class Heroes of all people, you know, I don't even know if Onyx and Gym Class Heroes seems odd, but the question is, how do you, as a DJ, it seems like they just decided like, oh, let's act.
Nobody was thinking about the authenticity of it.
I don't think it was more. I think it was more because of the novelty and because of the whole creative aspect. I mean, I'm a DJ and a drummer, so I can see it from both sides. Which is, you know, you see Quest spend sometimes anything from, depending on the segment. So I get it in terms of wanting to do something bigger and quote unquote better, but only if it makes sense. It didn't make sense for the audience.
So do you think that? So that's the thing that bothers me, is that it's bigger, sure, because you're more physical human beings involved.
Right.
But there's this assumption that it's better.
I think it's perceived as better, and it can be better because sometimes at a live show, sometimes people want to see more. You know, but only if it's well done. You know, sometimes a hybrid, a DJ and a band works well.
The best way.
You know, I think sometimes using the two of them, when you use the live instrumentation with, you know, the right amount of tact, then it works well. You know, but you don't want to overshadow. I mean, it didn't sound like even the song. You're right. It sounded like you heard the bass line for Onyx, and it just didn't sound right. But
Right, and that's what I was saying. Remember, I think we went to the De La show.
Right, because they did both.
when was that?
When they did the 3 Feet High and Rising
Okay,
tour.
I think I
A
missed
couple
that.
months ago.
And it wasn't, to me, it was like, these are not De La songs. These are live interpretations of De La songs. So there was, Maceo was there, but there was a band as well. And I just felt like it was not that it was whack, but I love Maceo though. I love those songs. Like, I don't know, why did you now in the 20, it just seems odd to me. You're celebrating 20 years of this album, and then you're going to present it in a way that is completely inconsistent with what I've been listening to for 20 years.
But I think for the De La show, what they did well was they did have the band, but they did have Maceo there, so they gave him, and it was just a part where the band just left the stage, right?
Yeah.
And then they just took it back to like the fundamentals, to the basics, and so they could appease West. And what he was looking for. But for somebody like me, when I go to like a show, so say I'm in like, and especially now with hip hop, we're selling out like arenas, Madison Square Garden, and you're doing, you know, these big shows. People want an experience, you know what I mean? And I think what the band brings to that is like you have an MC, but you also have these other elements that go into it. I think that work really well, especially for large, you know, bigger venues, a lot of people, and a lot of energy that you need to bring. And then I'm not saying that you need the DJ needs to lead the equation. I think a hybrid, kind of what they did, works really well. But I think just the just the humanistic, of band members and them working off each other and interpreting and the creative aspects that can even come out of that, I think is really amazing. And that's what I love about the live band aspect in hip hop shows.
So that's good. That's a nice natural segue right there. So let's take a break and we'll come back and we talk about Megan who deals with the bands on the front lines and kind of pick up that point. So that's your homework for the next 5 minutes. So let's get back. We're going to get into, actually I'm going to play a couple of joints from your mixtape, from the Sampleology, the Kanye West one. We're going to start talking about we got like the Kanye, the Shaka Khan into 3 Wire. We're going to play with that a little bit real quick. So we'll be back in about 5 minutes, y'all. Brooklyn Bodega, get at us at Brooklyn Bodega, Facebook/Brooklyn Bodega, and soon we'll get this call. Well, the call-in feature is up, but probably maybe next week. All right, we'll be back.